Krusen, writer, director, producer of Sabina K. and Let Me Have My Son. Before we get started with Chris's interview, let's take a look at his impressive director's reel.
Okay, let's do it, Tom.
All right, guys, this will be a picture.
Movies are complete pictures, made up of many fragmented pieces. It's like a tapestry that on one side presents this unified, uniform, beautiful artistic vision, but which if you flip it over and look on the back, would appear to be a jumble of thread. And making a movie is like that. You really have to know how all the pieces are going to fit together. The greatest highlight for me on this film was working with the cast and crew that I had the great privilege to work with. They were talented and I appreciate their talent, but I loved their spirit, their personalities, the friendships that I made. That is something that I will always treasure in my heart.
Odnos njega I ekipe kompletne, bez izuzetka ikakvog je toliko ljudski, toliko nekako duhovan više nego bilo šta drugo. I onako, svi ga nekako smo ga zavoljeli ko oca i nas ko djecu i to je to.
Josh, what are you doing?
Stay there!
What are you doing? Josh, I didn't mean to. Josh, I'm your father, Josh.
Some father you are. Don't you make a sound. You hear me?
I write, I direct, tell stories, but you know what? I can't change a flat tire. I can't change oil in a car. Somebody asked me, well, what do you use to edit? Like, what software do I use to edit? My answer is I use an editor. That's how I edit. I use an editor. How do you shoot? I get a great cinematographer.
That one, he needs attending to.
By him? He's a troublemaker. Peacemaker, actually. Suppose it makes him more dangerous, stirring up strife with this reconciliation business. Or is he really so dangerous? He's just another thorn in the flesh that needs to be removed. Sending out the wrong message. Did you know I was there? Where? The township where he lives. I know him. Really? You know, it might make things more difficult for you if you know him. Or make me stronger? Yeah. I almost shot you.
I find that there is a spiritual reality in film, and that the reason movies touch people is because they carry a spirit within them. And the spirit that's in that movie that was put in there at the time of conception, that spirit will remain, because that's the Spirit of God. 50% of directing is casting a film properly. Because when you cast the film properly as a director, a big part of your job is done.
You're such a beautiful boy. So beautiful. The light of my eyes. My own dear son.
Guys, please don't settle down. Please don't put it back in. Let's not do it.
Benny?
You're my man there.
I think of most films as dreamlike, in the sense that dreams are not always explainable, rationally speaking, but dreams always leave us with a feeling.
Okay, so hi, Cris. I'm here with Krusen, the wonderful writer and director and producer of Sabina K, and also Let Me Have My Son, among others. So thanks for joining me, Cris. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure, Valerie.
Now, so before we get into everything, I just want to ask you about Sabina K and the Academy Awards and all of that. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that happened and, you know?
Well, let's be clear, it did not win an Academy Award.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
It should have. It should
well, yeah, thank you for saying that. No, to be clear, it was considered it was considered for the Academy Awards as well. Let me be more specific. In the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina, they selected Sabina Kay, or they reviewed Sabina Kay along with another film, maybe two other films. We were among the finalists in the lead up to the Bosnia's selection for the Academy Awards that year. I guess that was 2016. So we came real close, but no cigar in that sense. But as you say, I mean, or as you infer, it is a beautiful film, and it was a wonderful experience making that film. And that's been our reward. Just we know we made a beautiful film, and it touches people's lives and hearts, and that's going to keep going, right? That'll endure.
Exactly. My next point is exactly that. So maybe next time with your recent film, Let Me Have My Son. So can you tell me a little bit about that, and what your goals are, and what you plan to do with the film?
Sure. Well, Let Me Have My Son is also a feature-length film. We're shooting that here in the United States as well as Mexico. And we have completed a little more than half of the filming. So slightly more than half of the film is in the can. And we're looking to finish up principal photography end of September this month. Well, no, not quite. We're not quite in September. But end of September, first part of October, we'll be finishing up the shooting. And Let Me Have My Son is based on a very it's a personal story. It's based on my experiences with mental illness, specifically as mental illness has affected my family, and in the case of the film, my son, my firstborn child, who has struggled with schizophrenia, who is actually now 38 years old, and he is institutionalized at the moment, but we're hopeful that he will be able to transition into a less restrictive setting, a group home situation. But that's a long journey of, well, let's see, almost 20 years from the time he was first diagnosed. And it's been, frankly, it was never something I even wanted to put in a film or thought of putting into a film. It's just too painful. And some would say too private, but I'm not hung up on the privacy aspect of it so much anymore, because I really believe it's something that needs to be shared and talked about openly. And so we want the film to be a film of great beauty, but a film that also shows great empathy for people who are on the margins or have been written off due to mental illness, just excluded. So it's very much a redemptive film in that sense.
Okay, all right. So just very, very briefly, can you talk to our audience so that they're clear about the tasks of the producer and the director and how they differ?
Sure. Well, the audience should know that sometimes those roles do overlap, and often a director, you'll see in the credits, has a producer's credit in the screen credits I'm talking about. He'll be mentioned as a producer as well. So it depends. But typically a producer is more concerned with all of the nuts and bolts, if you will, of the operation, and how to keep the train moving down the tracks and reaching the station on time and leaving the station on time. All of those sort of business, pragmatic kinds of choices and decisions that need to be made. The director is often referred to as the creative type, the auteur of the production, the story, and you'll often hear an expression, the director's vision. So the crew and the cast, they're there to implement the director's vision. and not to make light of that, because somebody needs a vision when you're making a film.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have chaos and a lack of direction. So, but as I say, they do often overlap.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, so the big thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because my audience is primarily actors, models and actors, but can you talk to me about your casting process? How do you cast? What are you looking for? What makes an actor stand out? You know, what's going on inside your head when you're behind the camera, and you know, what kind of things will turn you off?
Well, maybe I'll start with the last part of the question. The things that would turn me off would be if an actor seems too anxious, you know, too eager. That can be a turn off. Chill, relax. Just by working yourself up into more of a frenzy is not going to make you more appealing to the director. Don't overthink it.
Right.
Directors, I guess I could really only speak for myself in this, but what I'm looking for is sincerity. I'm looking for a genuineness in the character. And let's be honest, I'm also admittedly looking for something that to some extent I've preconceived. So because I'm also a writer, I usually write the scripts that I direct. I've already created in my mind a certain image of how I would envision the character, the various characters in the story. And so when someone auditions, let's say for one of those characters, the truth of the matter is that even though I may not want to, I have a bit of a preconception as to what I'm looking for in that character. Now that, of course, can work against the actor if the actor auditioning doesn't fit that preconception. However, I still would stand by the point of being sincere, of being genuine, being authentic. There's nothing less attractive to me than an actor who doesn't seem to feel something, you know, deep within something. If I don't see any sincerity coming out in the audition, it makes me think, well, this person's probably not someone I want to work with, you know, because what do actors do at the end of the day? They make a role come to life, right? And so when you see a film, any film, you know, from the greatest films to the smallest films, when you're in the theater, it's the actors on the screen who are transporting you through the story. They're taking you on the journey, and you want to be in their company. You know, you enjoy being in their company, and I truly think that has to begin right at the very earliest stage of the audition. Shall I tell you a little secret?
Please.
Well, when you auditioned for the role
I didn't know it was going to be about me, but okay. Well, go ahead.
When you auditioned for the role of Holly Christmas in Let Me Have My Son, I noticed at the very end of that audition, when you were taking care of the old man, you know, you were a home care nurse, and you were telling him good night, you showed a certain empathy and a certain caring came out of you. It came forth as you were doing that audition, playing that role, that struck me as very genuine, very, very genuine. And I kind of, well, I saw that, and then I, in a sense, seized upon that, and I said to myself, I can start there and I can develop working with this actor. I could start at that point of empathy, which I see very sincerely and genuinely in her persona. That can be the jumping off point to develop the character further, because it's real, it was true. Now, I think you, now that I've gotten to know you a bit, I think you are that way as a person. Um, so, yeah, so to me, that was what did it for me in that role that you auditioned for.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you know, I also love to collaborate with an actor. It's really not all about me as the director. I'm looking to see also what the actor is bringing to the part, you know, to the scene, what ideas he or she may have to make the scene better. You mentioned Sabina Kay earlier, the lead, the lead actress in Sabina Kay. She was constantly coming up with ideas for her part. I mean, constantly. And I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 times they were great ideas. They were great ideas that she had. Um,
Well,
so,
that's cool that you would be amenable to that, because as an actor, you don't know if the producer or if the director is going to say, "Look, I know how to direct," or so you never know. I guess you could kind of test the water and say, as an actor, and say, "Hey, I think this actor, this
right.
character would do such and such and such."
Actually, that's a good point you make. Test the waters because let's face it, directors are going to be different from each other, right? They're not all going to be the same. They won't all have that approach that I outlined. That's me. That's my approach. That's how I work. But another director might be very different and not appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I can only speak for myself.
Okay. I also, wanted to key off of that because you had talked about, we had on a separate conversation, we talked about, you said you were looking for a character in your film that wasn't necessarily attractive. And I was telling you about Jungle Fever, and that they had a crack addict, and the crack addict was Holly Berry, ended up being Holly Berry. So, my question then is, how do you feel about an actor coming in as kind of dressed as the character? Also, I remember there was an actor in Coming to America. She said that she dressed like the character.
Right.
But some people don't like you to come in a doctor's, coat or whatever, looking like a doctor. But the thing is, if Holly Berry had walked in, I don't know if she had the audition or they just gave it to her or what, but if she had walked in looking like Holly Berry, they might have second thoughts about can this lady play a crack addict? But she was fantastic in the role,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure there's one answer to that question. Again, just speaking from my perspective, I would not necessarily be put off by an actor who auditions in quote unquote costume or wardrobe, but that would not by itself convince me. In fact, the first question that I would have, though I wouldn't voice it to the actor, it wouldn't be fair, but the first question I would have within would be, is this actor trying to compensate for a lack of talent, and trying to kind of win me over by, outward accoutrements, So that would be, I guess, a danger in that process.
I see. Yeah.
But it wouldn't necessarily turn me off either. So I could see that going either way.
One quick question I want to ask, and this is kind of my personal thing, but how does an actor go about asking for a clip for their reel? Because some producers and directors are amenable to that and some are not. But the thing is that clip really helps the actor to get the next job. And some producers and directors don't want to be bought. They're like, hey, you did the job, it's my film, move on, So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, if they have that reaction, that's being very unfair on their part to have that reaction, and very uncaring and insensitive to the need of the actor, because I agree with you, that is important, that the actor have access to that. In fact, in all the contracts with actors on Let Me Have My Son, I made sure the attorney wrote in there that a clip of the scenes would be made available to the actor once the film is edited, you know. Maybe it said goes into release. I can't remember how that was worded, but personally, I'm very understanding of that and would want the actor to have it. So I suppose my answer to your question would be make sure it's in your contract. Make sure it's in your contract. It only needs to be an extra sentence.
Right, yeah.
That you're entitled to a free digital clone of your scene. And you want a digital clone because you want the highest quality in terms of the image that you can get. That doesn't apply so much these days, but in the old days when media was analog, as you start going down generations, the quality deteriorates. That's really not so much a concern now, but you want a high quality duplicate of your scene, and you might even put outtakes if possible.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because maybe your favorite part ended up on the cutting room floor, and you'd like it for your reel.
Right.
So
that's a very good point. You know, my audience might not know that you are like this incredible and phenomenal actor. I didn't know that.
What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't understand.
But having said that, can you talk to me about making a choice and what's the best way for an actor to prepare and get their best performance? Because, you know, I recently auditioned for something and I don't know why, but the character was smoking a cigarette. It just came out that way. And it wasn't like in the script. So it's about making a choice, you know, especially in an audition.
So you're saying you as an actor, as you prepared for the role, you came up with the idea that you would smoke a cigarette as part of the audition? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, that's true. Based on what I knew about the character, you know, yes. Right. And I made that choice. That wasn't in the script. But I got the part, you know. So, but I just wanted to speak to that.
Yeah. I think you need to trust your intuitions, you know, and your choices and run with that. There's a great quote that I just love this quote from the French, he's passed on now, but French director Robert Bresson, who said that your intuitions, he said, trust what your heart is telling you or your intuition is telling you 100 times more than what your head is telling you. And Frank Capra, another great director, said that, you know, I can't quote him quite as well, but the point was that, you know, again, trust your intuition. Your intuition is trying to tell you something. And, you know, obviously that doesn't apply just to acting. That applies to life, right? I mean, we all have feelings, right? You know, this sort of a sixth sense and something's not quite right here or there or whatever.
Right.
Everybody can relate to that, right? Well, the same is true of acting. As you know, prepare for this role and you soak up everything you possibly can as you study. Listen to your heart. Yeah, and don't just listen to the head, but listen to the heart.
Okay. Well, I have two quick questions and then I'm going to let you go. I know you're busy, you're still editing. Let Me Have My Son. But what do you look for when reviewing a resume? And do you have any other advice that you'd like to give to prospective actors before we close?
Well, the headshot is important for sure. I mean, even though you may not look like that headshot, if at least it's close enough for someone to say, oh yeah, I see, you know. That's important because sometimes you're just simply trying to create a collage. As a director, I'm saying, if you have if you have scenes with 20, 30 or more people, excuse me, as we do with Let Me Have My Son coming up, we've been looking for extras, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to get a kind of global picture, and having those headshots of 30 plus people is very helpful, right? Mm-hmm. I can kind of get a sense. But on the resume itself, I would just say, if you don't have a lot of real world experience per se, I wouldn't want you to lie about something, like totally make something up, invent something. But if anything comes close to some sort of work experience, put it down. Mm-hmm. And you can always modify later as your career grows. You can get rid of those little parts you had down there. Mm-hmm. But to just say, oh, I'm just starting out and I've never done anything before, that's probably not such a good idea. I mean, if you've acted for your family around the table at Thanksgiving or something, put family theater, something. I mean, if you're really serious about this and you have a passion for it, don't be shy to put down all your credits. If you're if you're just getting started, you need something there. And as your career grows, you can winnow those out. You can delete them over time and lead with what's strongest.
Okay. Any last words of advice for actors?
I would say let me put it this way. In a way, if you really want to be an actor, you don't need my encouragement, because you're going to do it no matter what. Mm-hmm. So I guess the final word of advice would be, don't be dissuaded. Don't let yourself be held back by negativity or people who make even mean comments, or people who say, yeah, you'll never make it in that. Now, as I say, if you really want to be an actor, you're not going to let that hold you back anyway. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is, yeah, that's true. You're going to keep going. And you know what? Keep going.
Mm-hmm. Well, Cris, it has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. And I wish you so much success, continued success with Let Me Have My Son and any of your future endeavors.
Thank you very much, Valerie. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Krusen's film, Sabina K., was shot on location in Bosnia. It was in Oscar consideration in the Best Foreign Language Film category. Sabina K. also won Best Picture and Best International Film at ICVM in Cincinnati, Ohio. He is currently in production for his latest film, Let Me Have My Son.